Welcome to the podcast of School Beyond Limitations. In this podcast, you will learn how to guide your child through their school life with the intention to help them find their unique essence that will allow your daughter, your son to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. Hello, today I'm delighted to invite a wonderful colleague to our conversation, and it's Brian McHugh, who has joined School Beyond Limitations about 2 years ago now. I would say in exactly February 2 years ago, we started the teacher training program, and then at the end of August, he joined us as a facilitator in the secondary school. And welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to you a little bit in more detail, because I think it's always interesting to find out why, facilitators leave other school contexts to join School Beyond Limitations. So I'm first and foremost wondering whether you would like to share a little bit of your experience before and what called you into the vibe of School Beyond Limitations.
Certainly. Well, to give a little background, I suppose, I think I've been teaching now for 14 years. And I started teaching English as a second language, actually, in Venezuela. And I returned to England, where I received full qualification teaching in the secondary schools there, teaching English as a specialism at GCSE, middle school and A-level equivalent. And I then went to teach internationally. I kind of had the bug for that since Venezuela. And as a student, I was actually an international student as well. So I went to China then and spent a few years until, of course, COVID hit. And it was then that things were thrown up in the air a little bit. And I found myself looking for a new position. And this is where I heard of School Beyond Limitations. Now, actually, this is strange, and it's still a bit of a mystery how I actually found out about SBL. My brother sent me a link. He's a teacher also. And he said, hey, check this school out. Because he knew I was between jobs. And I said, okay. I went to the website, I had a look. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I had a few other projects going on at the minute. I was still undecided what my next steps would be. I was still actually teaching with China as well. And well, obviously, things materialized, and I've been with SBL very happily for, as you say, 2 years now. But I've since asked my brother, where did you get the link to SBL? He doesn't know. He can't remember. And so it just, the way I see it, it came to me from the sky, just by providence, by good luck. And so what brings me to SBL, or what attracted me? As I say, it wasn't an immediate thing. I actually put it to the side for a while, came back later. But I suppose, Martina, meeting you was a big part of that, because, you represent so much, I think, the energy and the direction of SBL in terms of the pedagogy and the vision. And the way that you presented it to me, really, it resonated at the time and still does. Your passion, I think, for this project is really important. And I think without that, it would perhaps not have been. It might have felt more like a risk. I felt confident that you were leading it, and I also agreed wholeheartedly with the vision. Personalization, student-centered approach, putting student well-being really at the forefront. Making that number one, and that the learning will follow, the growth will follow naturally after that, ensuring that the child is secure and happy and, stress-free. They can then actually move on to developing themselves academically, holistically, emotionally. And of course, that was a big part of everything, the holistic approach. It wasn't a singular focus on examinations, grades, preparation for university, which every single school I had been to in the past, that was number one, even if sometimes they didn't, they pretended it wasn't number one, and they would say, yes, personalization is very important here. It's a student-centered approach. But actually, once you get into the way things operate, you realize, no, it's exams, it's grades, it's parental pressure, parents who want grades above all else often. And yeah, I think there's more, I suppose, also, and maybe I didn't realize this at the time, but I, as a teacher, had been under a lot of stress. Sorry, I keep going out of focus here, but I think the demands on teachers as well is extraordinary. Coming from demanding systems such as England, and then the private education system in China. Yeah, it's just, it's not an environment where individuals can really be themselves. And I speak about teachers being themselves. You often feel the need to conform, to fit into a particular box that the school wants you to be. And often that's disingenuous. It's not real. It's a reflection of outside pressures and constraints. And I recognized in SBL that the individual teachers were valued for who they were as individuals. And that's actually really quite rare. I think, on the contrary, schools tend to oppress that individuality. They want to create a sameness among all of the teachers, as if there is no individuality between them. But of course there is. And SBL embraces that, I think, in a great way.
Oh, that's beautiful, Brian, what you're just saying, because this is what we stand for, right? It's really appreciating the uniqueness of each single human being that is part of SBL, its students, facilitators, and parents alike, but still by having some values in place, and the pedagogy in place that gives a clear direction. So, and you mentioned something very important before, which I find extremely interesting to listen to. And don't worry about getting out of focus. It's your camera. We know that.
It's playing up today. There we go.
Yes, that's better. You mentioned that there are so many schools who actually write about personalization and talk about, individualization, going and putting the student into the center of their attention. And you're saying at School Beyond Limitations, you feel this is really happening. What do you think makes the difference then at School Beyond Limitations? Something you have already mentioned, but I think I would like you to get into more depth with that, because just to give an idea to the outer world, because there's so much you can write, but there's so much, it's so different what you do at the end of the day.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think some of the structural things that we have in place allow this to happen. So, for example, 8 students per class is a blessing. You will not really find that in a traditional school, partly because it's probably not feasible from a financial point of view to put 8 students in a classroom and maintain a large building. And schools, especially the private ones, they wish to operate a profit. So it's about maximizing that number of students. And so, even in a private school, say you have 16 or 20 students in a class, which is as good as it gets generally, you cannot, you're challenged further to provide true personalized individual attention to 16 or 20 or 30 students. So structurally, with only 8 students in a class, we are able to give that attention. But even more so, it's about how we approach the learning opportunities that students have. We put their interests and their passions first, and we work from there. We meet the student where they are, and we get to know them. We build a relationship, and it's from there that the curriculum, if you want to call it that, grows. And it grows from the passion and the interests of the individual student, not from a top-down approach where I come along and I say, look, this is what you need to learn. This is what you're going to learn today. This is what you must learn today. No, we say, what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? And it's just this simple switch. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's actually revolutionary compared to what happens out there in the education system as we have it. And as a result, we don't have the conflict that normally exists, where students resist what they are being told they must learn, naturally so. And so, yeah, we do it like that, and students can follow their passion, and they can have a love for learning. They can maintain their curious spirit, which of course all children have from a young age. But at a certain point, for some reason or other, many tend to lose that passion and that natural curiosity. I wonder if it is something to do with the education system and the way it is. Yes, I think it is. And so we reignite that passion for learning. And and where there are challenges, because of course they will still exist, again, we meet the student where they are and we support them. We facilitate their growth, whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be academic. It might be emotional. It might be personal. It might be spiritual. Anywhere at all where the student needs that attention, then they can be given the space and time to strengthen and to develop.
That's beautifully said, Brian, and it actually connects with what you said before. When you mentioned first we need to look at the well-being holistically of the student, of each student, because then later on, once they feel that there is a relationship, that they are seen, and that they can trust the facilitator, they will be also open up towards academic studies. And that doesn't mean that they are never open. Actually, they are, because intrinsically people are curious. And you also mentioned that we do, of course, encounter also some, more complex situations, but you mentioned about the shift of viewing, or the shift of looking at things, changing perspective, just so that the student sees we are not here to kind of control you, punish you. We are here to guide you. Do you have any example, Brian, without, of course, making any names, but do you have any example where you would say a shift has taken place within this student, where, a conscious change of behavioral change or new insights have just taken place or happened?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's happening all the time in different ways. To pick out a specific example, yeah, I suppose, we have older students who are coming from a background in the traditional system. And I use the word, and this is an emotive kind of word, but the word trauma, whereby, they're conditioned by their experiences of the educational system, and often their relationship then with particular academic pursuits is a little negative, or it brings back some bad memories. And yeah, I suppose encouraging students to make the connection between their own hopes and dreams, their own ambitions in life, their goals, to make the connection between those goals and academic pursuits, whereby they realize, oh, the motivation is intrinsic. It's within me here. This is what I want, actually, because I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. And so, yeah, there have been cases of students deciding to pursue a more rigorous academic route because they realize that alignment is there with their goals. And so I think that is an example of just supporting someone to develop a more positive relationship with academic work. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. And Brian, you also mentioned before that, you encountered a lot of pressure within traditional systems, also in private schools, because at the end of the day, you need to meet standards,
Mm,
mostly on the basis of grades and so forth.
yeah.
So, which impact did it have on you as a facilitator, being collaborating, experiencing, living within a nurturing context that really cares about each and everyone as much, as the students, also as much as the facilitators. So, what would you say?
Yeah. This, I think it all comes back to something I like to emphasize with the students as regards their learning journey. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And I think when you're in a traditional school system, there's a big focus on the destination. And when students don't come along with that same intention, then there's conflict. And I think for me, the biggest stress that I encountered in the traditional system was dealing with students who were struggling and who were rebelling against the system, behavioral issues, managing large classrooms. And then, of course, coming to the end of the year, perhaps analyzing exam results and being judged on that. As a teacher, being judged on the results of the student based on some mathematical equation that looked at where the student was maybe 5-6 years ago. And, the system had an expected outcome. And if you didn't meet that expected outcome, the student didn't meet that expected outcome, then you had to explain that, right? You had to justify that, or that's in the best case scenario. Perhaps you weren't even asked to justify that, and you were simply judged on the final outcomes. But of course, it's much more complex than that. And if you're butting heads with students who don't have a buy-in to the system, they never gave their agreement. They simply were brought along with the current, and of course they're going to rebel. But yeah, I mean, in SBL now we have very supportive parents as well, and the students, they enjoy their school, they like it, and this, again, it seems like a small thing, but it's massive, it's huge. You will not meet many students in secondary school traditionally who say, I like my school, I love my school, I look forward to going to school. I value the friendships and relationships I have with both my peers and my facilitator or my teacher. That's rare. And it's rare because the school environment is often so toxic, I suppose, because of the stress, because of the pressures, and often then because of the behavioral issues between students. It can be very challenging, and I think it is very challenging for the vast majority of students. But SBL, it's an opportunity for students to enjoy what they do, which is just perfect. Yeah.
Beautiful. And Brian, what do you like in 3 words
My goodness. In
about
3 words.
School Beyond Limitations?
Well, I normally like more time to think about this, but we got freedom, um, inspirational, and growth. We'll go with
Well,
that. Yes.
thank you, Brian. Brian. So freedom, inspirational, and growth. And this is reflected by Brian, by all the facilitators at School Beyond Limitations. I thank Brian for his time and for having shared his experience and his view with us for this first conversation. Maybe there will be more in the future. I would love to do that, Brian. And if you think that you would like your son or your daughter be exposed to such a learning environment where there is inspiration, where there is freedom, and there is mental growth and personal growth and academic growth, then reach out to us. School Beyond Limitations may be the right place for you. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you.
At School Beyond Limitations, we support our students find their unique essence. Feel free to share the content of this podcast with other parents. We are here to show that your children can, indeed, bring their unique essence into life. So, reach out to us if you think that this is what you'd like your daughter, your son to experience, or apply through our website. Also, leave your comments, your questions, or your review about the podcast. Share it with others. And, as you know, sharing is caring.